All right, today is the day, step number 6 in the Arete Supercar project. We have a car, but we need to refine it and have it almost perfect. In fact, the closer we can get it to perfection, the better it'll be, because each panel is going to be taken from that car by mold. And whatever the car looks like now, that's what the mold's going to reproduce. So any body panels that are made in the future are going to be exactly what we've recreated now. So we need to take sandpaper, lots of sanding, finish it as smooth as we can, lots of body filler, and we need to keep working and refining it till it's as smooth as glass, painted and shined, buffed and polished. Anyway, let's go take a look and see how it is ready for the molds. When we last left off, the car was just been sealed in preparation for applying this fiberglass layer. Now just applying a 4-ounce fiberglass cloth to the entire surface of the vehicle. That's to strengthen it a little bit and to put a nice hard surface on in preparation for the next coating we're going to be doing. As I mentioned, strengthening it because we're going to also be moving the vehicle a little more often. Here's the first move. I just built a new studio onto the far end of the house. So taking the car out of the garage where I've been working on it and moving it down to the other end. Of course, the easiest way was right down the middle of the road. So got some friends and family help me move it down. Taking it in through the door that's the paint shop, through the paint shop into the studio itself. You notice that the car is now red. That red coat is just in preparation for this stage, which is a polyester body filler. I'm going to dye that polyester body filler blue. The idea here is to change the color every time you add a new layer, so that when you're sanding, you know when you've hit the previous layer. So this is just regular polyester body filler. Some people call it Bondo. Brand name, of course, recognition there, but this body filler, dyed blue, just going to add a little catalyst and then go ahead and apply it to the entire surface of the fiberglass covered vehicle. Of course, that fiberglass, you can see the texture of the cloth in it, and we just want to arrive at a perfectly smooth surface. So this body filler layer is just to cover up the texture of the fiberglass, and we will of course focus a little more after this coat on filling low spots, taking down high spots. But just take a squeegee, mix up the filler, trowel it on in as nice smooth as layer as you can. Like I said, we're not trying to achieve any kind of perfection at this stage, just getting that textured finish of the fiberglass covered up. Because that's what we're going to do, lots and lots of sanding. All right, today is the day. We have the car covered in our body filler, and it's time to start taking our first cut to get it down to a finer finished surface. Of course, we'll have a whole bunch of coats to go to get to that point. We have gotten from Eastwood a contour sander. Pretty excited to try this. It has these rods that slide in and out to adjust how much flexibility is in it. Of course, large surfaces, we want the least flexibility. Coming around these hard curves, we can increase the flexibility to work on the shaping of that. So pretty excited to get to try this. Let's get it whacked. Okay, there we go. We're starting to hit into our fiberglass, our red coated surface, which means it's time to stop. Once we get to that point, we do have some little areas where we can see our low, a little bit darker where it hasn't been sanded, brought to that white powdery look. Those are going to be filled again, and we'll go back to a sanding. Of course, down here we can see where the red is. That's what we're looking for. Always changing colors between coats so we know how far we've gone. Don't want to go too far, break through that fiberglass. Or next coat will be a little bit harder surface. We'll sand through until we hit the body filler. So that's the theory. Put a coat of color on, sand down until you only have low spots. Fill the low spots, keep sanding. Of course, it's not all sanding. There are some times when you're going to step back, add some more body filler to fill in some low spots, and then okay, I guess it is more sanding. Because that's what we're going to do, lots and lots of sanding. And I'm not even sure how to narrate all the sanding that's going to take place. I guess maybe a few helpful hints. Of course, the largest surface area of sander you can use, the better. The harder the surface of the sander, the better as well. Work at 45-degree angles, take as long as strokes as possible, and then just keep working back and forth. Make sure you cover all the areas with a cross pattern, go back the opposite way. Now, part of the process here, I had to take a step back and cut out a little section of where the window's going to be. This is because we want to actually apply a drip edge with a squeegee that will clear the windows when they go back up and down. And I had to step back and cut out a little section because that drip edge is going to actually stick out further than the window plane that's represented in the model here. So just cutting out that layer of burlap, plaster, fiberglass, all those layers are all coming out to reveal the ribs. And once I had that burlap and the plaster cut away, then I need to go ahead and cut the ribs away as well. A little later on, we'll describe this whole process a little bit more in depth. Just showing here, this is part of the step. I said the ribs have to come out just so that I can be able to sand in there and fill it. And I'll let the video itself take over that description right here. Okay, now that I've got this whole surface into the shape I want it, I've had to cut this section out because we want to install this little drip edge, the squeegee outside drip edge, where the window will roll down. So this is the section of the window that's going to roll down into the door. But this line is not the same as the window plane. It needs to be offset slightly to allow room for the clearance of the window to go down through there. And it installs by just clipping onto a little edge that sticks up here. Now that edge is going to be further out than the window plane, so that's what we've done is we've cut this out. I've rebuilt this up with some fiberglass just so that I have an area to finish, and we're going to do that now. Now we're going to put one more coat on that'll be completely independent, and we're going to make that a harder layer than before. Each consecutive stage just going to get harder and harder. We're going to do that by mixing a layer of polyester resin and then filling it with calcium carbonate. Now this calcium carbonate has a little bit of a dark tint to it, and when you mix it with the resin, it actually turns very, very black and glossy, which is kind of nice to give us the next layer or next color to mark our layer surface. And mixed up to kind of the consistency of a honey. And as you trowel it on, it's a little more self-leveling, a little bit thinner. As mentioned, this makes a very hard coat, and that's what we want. Keep getting harder and smoother. There we have the entire coat finished. And of course now you know it's time to sand. Little contour sander going in the low grooves. As I mentioned, we're going to do different stages, and each layer gets a little bit more difficult. So of course, filling with the bigger, larger gaps takes the regular body filler, and then you move to a catalyst setting glaze. Go back and catch small imperfections. In this case, I found a blister by one of the fenders, so mixing up some of the filler for that. And then when you finally get closer to the end, I go to just an air dry glaze and just a razor blade to fill in pinholes and small scratches, things like that. Let's take a look at that blister and how we're filling those. So that blister was actually a bubble underneath the fiberglass layer, so I had to cut that fiberglass layer away. Filling one up on the high side here. Then we'll also fill the one down a little bit lower. All this in preparation. Now we're getting all the small imperfections filled. And of course then the next step is going to be to start reducing the size of our grit in our sandpaper. I should say going to a finer sandpaper so that we don't have these scratch lines. Of course, we're getting nice and smooth scratch lines, just a matter of reducing that by going to a finer and finer sandpaper. Of course, really cooking now, aren't I? Getting that sanded done in a hurry. Actually, just to save you the boredom of watching me sand over and over. Sped the speed up here. Boy, I wish I could have sanded that fast. Would have been a good cardio workout. Just when you think your sanding's done, it is time to clean the car off, and we're going to put a coat of primer on it. Well, wasn't that quick? Primer done. Time to move it back into the studio. Got a little setup of wheels that's click into the frame. Makes it so I can roll it back and forth. Of course, once it comes back into the studio, take the wheels off so that it doesn't move as much while we're sanding it. Keeps it a little more solid. Looks like it's getting nice and smooth. Of course, that primer, high build primer is nice. And then, of course, back to sanding. Oh yes, always more sanding. Or is that possibly the last time? Back into the paint booth. Hopefully, this is it. Once we get it back into the paint booth, could it possibly be that this is the last time to do any sanding? Take a moment here, put the doors on, seal up the paint booth. Drop those into place, close it up, and we are ready. Narrating again, of course. Thank goodness I'm not telling you about sanding, am I? Of course, this is the joyful moment that we're all waiting for. Using a regular automotive paint, a single stage paint. Because believe it or not, we're going to put this beautiful, clear, glossy coat on. But yes, we are going to sand it one more time. But at least for a moment, we'll have the joy of seeing the car in all of its beauty and glossiness. Of course, I just went to the paint shop. Told them I was looking for a single stage paint, see if they'd had some paint that somebody had not picked up that I could get a good deal on. They happened to have red, which was kind of nice because I thought it would be kind of fun to see what the car would look like in red, since the final version is going to be blue, but here it is in all of its glory. Almost ready to take molds. One more sanding coat and then we will be taking molds. Thanks for watching. Come back again.